Hey guys, I'm doing two videos today, so really weird. Anyways, I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos. I do that. I just sit here and watch YouTube videos. It's probably not great, but I do. And I notice a constant theme in the videos I'm watching, and a lot of it is sketchbook practices. And the biggest thing is what a sketchbook is it's a tool for you to practice your art, and it's an easy, portable tool. So you can make little figure sketches, or you can make longer studies, and you can keep it all in your sketchbook, and then you have a place to go that you can see your progress. And I always suggest dating your sketchbooks. So even if you write, no, it's the 6th today. Even if you write the date at the top of your page, or if you just do the date when you started your sketchbook and when you finished your sketchbook between, so that you have a reference as to your timeline as to when you were working on your sketchbook, it gives you basically a progression of your artwork. So you can draw figure studies or still lives or background studies, and you can even make notes in the front of the book or paste in a piece of paper saying, I'm going to work on perspective in this book, or I'm going to work on people, and just make yourself some notes and give yourself some reference materials. Say you're watching a YouTube video and they suggest a book, write it down in your sketchbook. That's what sketchbooks are for. They're for practice. They're not meant to be these amazingly beautiful works of art. They're meant for practice, and keeping one is for you to help yourself. You don't necessarily have to show it to anybody. You're more than welcome to. Obviously, it's your book. You can do what you want with it, but it's to make sure that you're growing as an artist and that you have a place to keep track of your art. And if the page is really bad, a lot of sketchbooks will have these little perforated pages that you can just rip out. I wouldn't suggest ripping them all out, because sometimes a drawing that you made, when you were drawing it, you hated it and you didn't like anything of it. You give it a couple days and you can go back and look at it and go, you know what, I actually like the way that hand turned out, or I like the way that I drew that face. It's always better to leave your art for at least 24 hours in the book before ripping it out, because there's always going to be something you can learn from failure. If you are not learning from failures, then you're not learning. You really need to make sure that you keep some of your dastardly failure drawings, because there's always going to be something that you can look at in them and go, oh, okay, I need to fix this, or oh, okay, I did this really well, but how do I incorporate that into the rest of the image, That's why I've never thrown out any of my art. And when I was in school, and trust me, I've got over 200 sketchbooks filled, storage became an issue, but I always kept them for reference, because I knew that eventually I would use some of the notes. I keep story ideas in sketchbooks. I do a lot of stuff in my sketchbooks, and I love them because it's just a perfect little record of that period of time in my life. It's like a journal, essentially. But it also shows me my progress, because I can look at a sketchbook that I had when I was 15 and look at one that I had when I was 25, a 10-year difference, and it's actually quite amazing to see the leaps and bounds that my artwork has gone through. But it's always nice to keep those records for yourself, because you can be very proud of where you've come. Not to mention, you can, if you're taking notes like I do in my sketchbooks all the time, you can go back and study those notes that you took at a later date once the sketchbook's filled. I used to number my sketchbooks and have them all chronological, but I stopped doing that a few years ago when they got to be, it was almost 200 books by that point that I stopped, which I should have just kept going. But anyways, never feel intimidated by a book. A lot of people say, oh, I just flip through the book, find an empty page, back here, and draw, and they don't go through it chronologically. I can't do that. I have to go through a book chronologically. It's a really, I don't know if it's OCD or what it is, but it just helps me keep a reference of, okay, on this day I drew this many pages, on this day I drew this many pages. And I really do try to date my work so I know that, okay, this book took 2 months to do, whereas the last book I had took 3 months. Okay, so what was different in this one? And usually I'm inspired by different things. That's why I get through books faster. But it's one of those things that you just got to keep working at and not feel intimidated by, and don't feel like you have to share your book, or that people will always want to like approach you and be like, oh, I want to see what you're doing. You don't necessarily have to share it. You don't have to show everybody everything. Like, a lot of times I will post sketches and scribbles and things I do on Instagram, but I'm not showing people the 10 pages it took me to get to that one nice sketch. I'm just showing them the nice sketch. So if you want to share, like, use Instagram or social media outlets. Instagram is a really great place for artists because, like, you can just share your work and then you can get other people to have input on it. Or DeviantArt, that same thing. Instagram's just a little easier to use with a phone. But anyway, it is what it is. But never feel obligated that you have to show someone what you're working on if you're not confident in it. It is good to show other artists if they are not assholes. It's always good to show other artists what you're working on to hopefully get some helpful input, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to. If you aren't as confident in a drawing and you just want to keep working on it and practicing the same drawing in your sketchbook, you can do that. You don't have to share it with people. A sketchbook is a very personal thing. It's not, you can share them, but you don't have to. Never feel like you're obligated to do that. I think I've repeated that like 6 times. Anyways, it still stands. But I hope this gives you guys a little insight into how I do sketchbooks and my thought process for doing them. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. Another quick thing, I like these little tiny figure studies I do because it's easy to get a pose down, and if you can take the pose yourself, generally you'll be able to draw it a little bit better because you'll know where the weight's going and you'll know like what direction the major masses and the limbs are going in. It's just a little helpful hint when you're drawing people. Alright, well, that about does it for this little video. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. If you have any suggestions for other videos, also leave them in the comments. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, and DeviantArt, and that is at MIA New Archer. Bye guys.